Over to you, John.
Okay, well, thank you, Peter. And yeah, we're 7:01. People are still coming on, but they'll catch up. So welcome to everybody to the last of our President's Forums for the current Rotary year. Great chance to catch up with people, and we've got one major agenda items and a few other items that won't take a lot of time from my perspective, but of course we're delighted to have as much dialogue as people would like to have around any of them. I think we'll nicely get done within the hour. And but if people want to stay and chat longer, I'm here for pretty much as long as you like. But we book it for an hour, and we're prepared to go to an hour and a half very easily if you know, if there's things that we have to chat about. And so our the major agenda item that we have for tonight is to talk about DEI and diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we're honored to have Ardith Paxton-Mann, our champion and chair of our district's DEI committee. And they've been very busy, and they've brought the proposal to the governor team that we were delighted to approve a little while ago in terms of consulting service that they are planning to offer clubs. And without any further ado, I'm delighted to turn this over to Ardith and Peter, who I understand will be working with you.
Thank you. Although Peter has been very clear with me tonight, John, that he is he's your wingman, not mine tonight.
Oh, okay. Well, fair enough. But he actually is. In fairness, if he's not participating, he gets credit for all the help that he's been giving to and support to the DEI world.
Oh my goodness.
Wonderful.
Peter has been amazing. We never would have made it where we are right now without his input and ideas and creativity and all those good things that he's known for throughout the district. That's for sure. And please feel free to jump in at any point. I'm going to be informal and hopefully short, and encourage you to ask questions at the end of my presentation. Is that all right, John?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to, first of all, could I just have a show of hands? How many of you have had DEI 101 presentations in your clubs? Don't be shy. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So maybe about half. Oops, sorry. Okay, so I'm just a little bit of DEI chronology. In 2021, we ran into a problem. Dave had hoped to have his conference in with the NISCA in the Nass Valley, and with an emphasis on First Nations, and that wasn't able to happen. And then we had an online conference, and then we ended up with a couple of years of COVID. During that time, we had the Rotary International Task Force on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, which went forward, put together a terms of reference, and hired PricewaterhouseCoopers to go out and do a worldwide focus group around DEI. There were 33,000 respondees, and we thought they were going to come back with a paper of some kind, and instead they came back with a series of products, and one of them was their commitment to DEI. Another was the Rotary's Guide to the Future and the DEI framework, and the DEI Code of Conduct. And for those of you who have been diligent and exploring the RI website, the DEI material is very valuable and very full. So if you haven't done so, I encourage you to have a look. The DEI Code of Conduct is probably the one that I get the most questions about, and the one that's probably the most valuable tool for Rotary presidents and presidents-elect, because this is the tool that helps you deal with microaggression in your club meetings, with conflict in your club meetings, and harassment. So most clubs seem to have these issues and have had over the years. And there is now a mechanism to deal with this at RI, and individuals who will provide advice to club presidents as to how to deal with situations. I think we all have run into situations where somebody stands up in the middle of a meeting and either interrupts a speaker or makes a comment that's terribly inappropriate, and people sit there and do nothing, and meanwhile everybody's thinking, how can this possibly be allowed? So this is a helpful way of dealing with that. And in we did a member survey, a District 5040 member survey, and around testing for awareness around DEI. And then we've spent from there, we established our committee, and we've been working very hard on our action plan. We put together, after our focus groups and our membership survey, we put together an action plan which revolved around the 15 recommendations that came out of the focus groups and the membership survey. And following that, this sounds like a very academic endeavor, but it was a kind of a combination of academic research and fly by the seat of your pants investigation. We looked at as much research as we could find, and other organizations who were in the DEI game. And this led us to our putting together our DEI 101 presentation, which we have delivered to 15 clubs in the last year. And we're hoping that those of you who haven't received it will let either Peter or me know, so that we can make sure that you do receive it, because it's important that you get the basics before we go to the next step, which is, as John has said, moving to rolling out DEI to clubs and consulting with clubs as to where they are and where they'd like to go next, and having them move at their own pace, which is important, but ensuring that moving at their own pace doesn't mean that they're not moving. So we want to make sure that clubs are clear as to what kind of support the consulting practice can provide to them, and that we can do that in a timely way. So I'm just going to, providing I can find it, I'm just going to read to you a bit from the piece that we took to the governor team requesting approval to roll out the DEI consulting practice in District 5040. And what we said was, the goal of this agency is to implement DEI as a growth, innovation, and development strategy and way of life in our district over the next 2 years and beyond. For the past year or so, the committee's been acting in response to Rotary International's initial announcement in 2021, the 15 recommendations coming from focus groups, and all member online surveys of 2021 and 2022. And much of the committee's work is reflected in posts to the DEI landing page on the district website, which is itself one of the action steps. And Peter, the landing page is on District 5040 and then off to the left, right?
Right. Correct. It's in one of the first drop-down menus. You can see DEI listed there.
So if you want to look at it, a lot of the work that we have done in terms of the research and investigation of the 15 recommendations has been posted there. And I think you'll find it interesting, and it may prompt questions, and it may prompt action on your part, because there's a lot of work that is certainly replicable. So as we said, our aim is to work with clubs in the district to work at their own pace, depending on their local circumstances, and without threatening what members have valued in Rotary over the years. In some instances, we're finding a little pushback from people who feel that this is new, this is change. What does it mean exactly? And when I'm finished making my presentation, I'm going to tell you what Valerie Wafer said on Tuesday at an RI meeting about DEI, and that will encourage you to move on. And I mentioned about not letting the district take a passive approach to DEI. Some clubs are having a tough time, and I think everybody's aware of that. But the committee and the consulting agency is in place to assist them and support them as they engage the future generations of members. This work is so closely tied to membership engagement and retention. But one of the biggest tools to engagement of new members and retention of existing members is DEI. DEI is exciting. It means reflecting the communities you serve. A lot of clubs are not doing that and aren't sure quite how to do that, and that's okay. But we've got some tools that we can share with you to make sure that that happens to a greater extent than it is right now. This is not a marathon, or this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So it's going to take time. Let me see, we talked about the DEI 101 presentation. We're going to share stories, and Peter has been very good already about posting those on websites and on our showcase. But our goal is to support 75% of our clubs in reaching their satisfaction in functioning in and benefiting from a DEI way of life with the remaining 25% in progress towards that goal by June of 2025. So it's what they used to call in the Olympics, a big, hairy, awesome goal. But I think we're going to get there. I've just spoken to a lot of people, particularly since the district conference, who are pumped by what they heard about DEI, both the activity within the Rotary clubs in our district and presentations from others, and this is not going to go away by a long shot. So just to highlight maybe a little bit from the conference, the conference talked about, Lindsay Ray's presentation talked about what she calls the inclusion journey. And she taught us a little bit about covering and allyship and privilege and unconscious bias. Some of us are aware that those things exist, but we're not quite sure what to do with them. She talked about creating brave spaces, and we've talked about this before. Clubs need to be comfortable having difficult conversations and getting out of comfort zones, and it's not easy. And we have to talk about personal bias, and I would refer you to a Harvard study called Project Implicit, which you can find online, and it's a fascinating study to take because you go through it, and at the end of it, you're told about your personal biases that came forward in the questions and answers that you dealt with as part of the study. We talked about being bystanders versus upstanders, and this is what we were talking about earlier in the code of conduct. When someone is making inappropriate comments, you have a choice. We can be bystanders and just sit there and do nothing, or we can be upstanders, which means the best way to go about it. Presidents know these things. You know your own clubs. You take the individual to one side and speak to them after the meeting You don't speak to them in front of the meeting and embarrass them in front of everybody in the club, but you make it very clear to that individual at that time, and to others later, that this is not part of how this club operates. It is inappropriate, and it just isn't part of the way Rotary operates. It's not in line with our values of respect and cooperation and collaboration and kindness. So that's it's amazing how well that works if we use it, and that part of it's not difficult. And then learning respectful engagement. And this is something that I don't think we do it particularly well because we haven't really been taught how to do it. And so we get involved in breakout groups or something. When we do it on Zoom, it's fine because somebody can control it and people aren't talking over one another. And we've got this wonderful little mechanism, which I wish I had at the dinner table, where you can press this button and your hand goes up, and then and then you wait to be asked to speak. But what happens is that everybody gets excited about the topic they're talking about, and everybody talks over everybody else, and it's difficult to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to speak and that the things that people are saying are heard. And this is where we need to practice really, really good listening. And it's very, very important that we do that as part of our DEI training. Now, I'm just going to remind you that one of the things that Lindsay Ray said on the weekend when she made her comments about DEI was, she said, we have to try, we have to fail, but fail forward. We have to learn, and above all, we have to do the work. And that's what we have to do, because this is not easy. We need everybody, all of you, presidents. You're going to be past presidents pretty soon. Presidents-elect are going to be presidents. We all have to work together to do this. And now I'll tell you what Valerie Wafer said. Valerie Wafer was attending a meeting of the Zone 28 and 32 DEI leaders in both those areas. And we went through a lot of the folks that are there have been working on DEI for the same period of time that I have, since RI came down with their initial announcement. And Valerie was and still is, because it's morphed into something else. But on May the 2nd, I think, Valerie got approval from the RI Board of Directors to form something called the DEI Advisory Council. And it's actually in the latest issue of your Rotarian magazine on page 14 at the very bottom. It's just a little strip announcement. But what that's going to do is that advisory council is going to turn all the language and all the words into action. And they are going to expect that we do exactly the same thing. And I spoke to her for a couple of minutes the day before this meeting, and I said to her, "Oh, Valerie, we've done some baseline surveys, and we've done focus groups, and we've got our action plan pulled together, and we're going to roll out a consulting practice." She said, "Oh my gosh, oh my gosh." So I said, "Well, you can call on Peter Rofe, because this is his brainchild, the consulting practice." So at any rate, what that meant was they're absolutely delighted with the work that we're doing and have invited me to sit on the Zone 2832 DEI committee, which is great, because it means we will benefit from all the resources that the zones have. And I think it's really wonderful. So that, I think, John, is an overview and kind of where things stand at the moment. Our committee members are, as a result of the approval of the consulting practice, our committee members are getting together in pairs, and they are going to be, first of all, contacting the 15 clubs that have received DEI 101 and asking them where they want to go next and what they'd like to do next. And we're also hoping that the clubs that haven't yet received DEI 101 will request presentations. And then we'll help those clubs determine their next steps and make sure they're aware of the research that's been done. We may be looking at recruiting new members. So if anybody is interested in joining the committee, or if you have anyone in your club you think might be interested in joining the committee and assisting with this rollout. We also have agreed that the first kind of reporting back will be sometime towards the end of July, because June is a very busy month. And then we're going to just keep advancing the learning process and sharing what we learn and moving forward. So that's that. And if I have time for a couple of questions, I'd be happy to receive them.
By all means, and I'd ask people to please use that handy little icon that Ardith referred to under the reactions. Please use the reactions with the hand button, raise hand. Okay, John.
Hi, thanks, Ardith. Great presentation. So if we wanted to invite this consulting firm, would it be on Zoom? Would they come in person? How long would it take?
We could certainly do. It's not a consulting firm, John. It's just us Rotarians from the DEI committee who have formed a consultancy as a result of the work that we've done. So you're not getting any highfalutin consultants. It's not PricewaterhouseCoopers, but we feel quite confident in the work that we've been doing. There are some people here that Mike Price is sitting on the DEI committee, for example, and has done a tremendous amount of work. Mike has put together a one-pager of 12 steps that clubs can take in incorporating DEI into their clubs, and it's really a great thing. It makes it very clear. It tells you what those 12 steps are. We will share anything you'd like, but I think initially what we've said is that each pair of folks from the DEI committee are responsible for contacting 3 clubs. So they're going to choose 3 clubs, and then you will hear from somebody.
Okay, good.
And then you can have discussions with them as to what you'd like to do, and you can identify areas that you'd like to start on, and they'll certainly advise you around that. We will absolutely be looking at issues of accessibility. No question about that. A lot of clubs during COVID have suffered venue issues, and in being anxious to find a new venue, have done so without thinking about or forgetting about accessibility issues. And so now we're really, with IDEA, as Shirley Pat calls it, we're really going to concentrate on access issues and ask people for their advice in that regard.
Shirley Pat's also a
Thanks,
member of the
Ardith.
committee.
And while they're not, well, I'm just going to jump in and say, while they're not a firm, they're actually better, and they're also cheaper.
Cheap, yeah. And we understand the clients we're dealing with.
There we go. Okay, Gabe, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Ardith. I don't think anyone has to worry or fear about this DEI concept, because it's a preliminary obligation for members to be ethical, to understand what diversity, inclusion, and all these things mean. When I was doing some training for the Zambian Parliament and Ethiopian parliaments, and before that to the Anti-Corruption Commission, the first thing we did was develop a code of ethics course and provided them. And you have no idea what a change it was in the way they worked, the way they behaved. Some of them did not even have the very basic concept of code of ethics. So I think it is a wonderful thing. I'm surprised it has not been done a long time before. And I am with you. I will be happy to help you because I have the very good knowledge of this area.
Great. That's wonderful, Gabe. Thank you for your
some of the little things that I can do.
Yeah. I also must tell you, and I don't know how I forgot this, but Shirley Pat is also a member of our committee, and her
fantastic.
input is extremely valuable. So that's hats off to Shirley Pat, and
Thank you.
Thanks, and I see
Sorry.
Lauren has his hand up.
oh, Lauren.
Yeah, Ardith, I just put in the chat there, Valerie walks the walk and talks the talk. She owned a Tim Hortons franchise and did this in her business life, and it made a big difference. So it had a lower turnover ratio, higher satisfaction ratio. And when you pay attention respectfully to people with disabilities or minorities or people of color, whatever the case is, it makes a difference. And it could segue into any people's business, but also into our not-for-profit sector as well. My question to you, Ardith, is more of if you have any ideas on how to potentially fundraise or raise dollars so that you can sponsor or support people with disabilities or people who may be socioeconomic and can't necessarily afford Rotary. There is ways to get some tips and tricks in there so that you may be able to get them in the room, because it's important. I don't live in that world. I have a son that lives in a little bit of disability world, but I don't live in that world. And so you need their minds, because we often forget about them. They're out of sight, out of mind, and it's important to have them in the room. And so I encourage us to really think differently about how you want to invite people with disabilities or people with socioeconomic classes who may have time and may be more valuable to you as a full.
Thanks, Lauren. And we do have a couple of people on the committee who are looking at other groups who are involved in these areas and the possible partnering. We haven't yet looked at joint fundraising, but that may well be a possibility that comes out of it. So thank you very much for that. I also forgot to tell you that Jennifer Jones, when she was here last summer in July, you remember that hot day at the yacht club, talked about DEI being the way forward. And she said, we have to do better to be better. And Valerie said this week, just about made my heart burst. She said, DEI is not a program. DEI is the fabric of Rotary. And when we look at it that way, it's easy to see how closely related it is to the engagement and retention and growth of our membership. She calls it expanding our reach. And if you think of DEI as the tool to do that expansion, things kind of start to fall into place. And Lauren, you're saying that's why we started the youth exchange program in the first place. Yeah.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Great. No, that's fine. I just wondered if there were any other questions. I will get information from the Zone 2832 session that was just held, and I will be happy to share it with the G team and AGs, and they can share it with presidents and presidents-elect, and it'll be much clearer when you can see the documentation. They did an excellent slide presentation, which would be a very good club program. You could build a meeting around it as presidents. So I think that there'll be some really good tools for you.
Exactly. Well, thank you very much, Ardith. I really appreciate you coming and sharing. And there's such a wealth of things that we can do here, and it's so consistent with the values that we've held in Rotary for so many years. And this takes us another step further. It elaborates. It engages us in more discussion. It opens up like the lovely ways that we were talking about accessibility, disability. There's a whole bunch of things that are interrelated here, and it's nice to see you and the committee charging ahead. Clubs have to proceed at their own pace, and we recognize that. And so we're there. Our committee, our district is there to support the clubs, and we greatly encourage. But we really need the clubs to work with us to sort out what works for the individual club. This is set up, it's volunteers, it's not one size fits all. It's let's work this out so that it works your situation.
I just should mention, for those of you lucky enough to be going to Melbourne, Valerie and her husband Mark will be conducting a fairly lengthy session on DEI in Melbourne. So keep your eyes peeled on the agenda for that. I imagine it'll be wonderful. They're
And,
quite
and
fair.
I'm going to plant
Okay,
a
well-
seed also for next year for Terrace, for the conference in Terrace and the Nisga'a Nation. Mr. Wafer is our keynote speaker on the A as part of IDEA. And so
Yeah.
you will have a chance to hear from him directly and the accessibility company that they created. So they definitely do, as Lauren said, walk the talk.
They
And
sure
he's
do.
awesome.
Yeah. Yes, he is. He's great.
Hans.
Can you hear me? I hope.
Yep.
Yep.
I was eating dinner. That's why you didn't see me when I started this. I appreciate where DEI is coming from. I won't comment that I think it's more US based, but I think our district in British Columbia and Canada, we do pretty good with the diversity of our population and whatnot. But I was never happy 20 years ago when all of a sudden our district started to focus on, we need ethnic clubs. Okay. When you want to talk about inclusion and diversity, when you have a club of all Koreans, if you have a club of all Filipinos, a club of all Taiwanese, how do you reconcile that with DEI? How do you reconcile that? I have some issues on that. What is the district doing, and why are we still continuing to encourage monolithic, well, whatever, unilingual clubs, and not have them be part of the whole social network that we have here in Canada? It's all nice to come over here and associate with your expats, but if you want to be a Canadian, you have to get along with the rest of us. And I want to know, what are we doing as a district to address that? Am I the only one that has this issue? Because if I do, then I got a real problem. I'm sorry.
No, thanks. Thank you, Hans. And I know you're not the only one. The thing I will get into that if depending on where the conversation goes. But first, I'm going to give Ardith first shot at that question, and then I see Lauren has his hand up, and if they haven't answered, if they haven't said what I might say, I'll jump in after Lauren. So Ardith, I'll give you first shot at that.
I would just respond, Hans, by saying that you're not alone. There are a number of people who feel this way. The thing about diversity, equity, and inclusion is the emphasis on inclusion. And if anybody should be able to join a Rotary Club anywhere, and should be welcome and should feel valued and should enjoy membership. And if this is the case, when this is the case, when a Rotary Club is just all one ethnic group, that can make things difficult. But there are ways to get around that. And the lovely thing about it is all those members are doing wonderful work for Rotary. So we're benefiting as a district. But the thing is, we have to remember that the diversity is about differences, and it's about celebrating differences, and it's about adding value to the district. So I don't feel that it flies in the face of advancing DEI.
Lauren.
John, and Hans, respectfully, I'll tell you this. I had the same conversation with RI president last year, and I was concerned that we go down this path that we're trying to make all clubs multi-generation, multi-ethnic pieces, and that's not the intent of this. The intent is to provide choices and provide alternatives in an area where you would lock people out of belonging to Rotary at all. So the second thing is the cause, if we're going to cause-based clubs or into ethnically based clubs, with their partnerships with their sister clubs in their own country of origin, is a winning formula. And I would not ask us to discourage that at all. The second part is the way we filtrate this is if we get our areas and our districts to collaborate more and to be more inclusive in district grants, global grants, fundraising initiatives, strategic planning. That's how we break the barrier of it. Because at the end of the day, we want all those minds in the room instead of out of the room.
Thanks. Okay, Gabe, I was going to talk, but I'll go to you first.
I'll just do it very quick. Are there such clubs that only cater to certain ethnicities or certain racial groups? I've never heard of that.
Okay, yes, there are clubs that are essentially all from one ethnic group, or may speak to the point that they may tend to speak a different language than English in their meeting. We have several such clubs in our district, and it's not uncommon in Rotary more broadly.
Okay. Yeah, it
Okay.
defies all the principles of inclusion and diversity, doesn't it?
Well, no, the thing is that okay, I'll jump. There are different ways that Ron, I'll go to you next after me. There are different ways of looking at diversity. And from the standpoint of the organization as a whole, we've gone down the road of trying to be diverse in very different ways, including within clubs, but also including we've diversified the way that we have Rotary clubs. If you take a look at the a longer run, we used to all be a bunch of business and professional people that met for lunch. Well, that's gone, and men at that met for lunch. Well, we've diversified a long way from that, and we've continued to provide different options for clubs. We've now, we went into some of the e-clubs, the passport clubs, the online, we've got satellite clubs. We've got a whole bunch of just a wealth of different options, and it includes cause-based clubs. And there is some link, some relationship association between some clubs that may be more cause-related, and as Lauren mentioned, you may have people that are trying. The cause is to support a third world country, for instance, that they may come from. So there's a whole bunch of different options, and my feeling is that I appreciate that there's a lot to be said for having diversity within a club, but we don't make the choices for other clubs, and we need to be inclusive, tolerant about people making different choices. And if they're doing good things, if they're doing good work, if it's consistent with Rotary, who are we to judge? And so I think that's kind of where we're at. It contributes to a better overall Rotary, and it doesn't really cause. I haven't seen it cause real issues. I'll put it that way. Ron, and then we've got John Kibblewhite, and then Hans again.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as an assistant governor with two such clubs within my jurisdiction, it's always a pleasure to attend those clubs. And I think if we start taking this diversity too strictly and try to take it down to every level within the club, we're going to be doing the district a big disservice. These clubs actually do advance our diversity. They do provide opportunities for people with ethnicity to join Rotary, to get to know it. I think the problem comes if they start restricting people from the clubs, which they should not do. But if we look upon diversity on a broader basis, I think it's a very, very positive thing for Rotary in general and for our district in particular.
Okay, John, and then Hans, and then Jan, and then we're going to call this to a. We could keep going all night, so we'll do John, Hans, and Jan, and then we'll wrap this up and move on to a few other things.
Thanks, John. Just a quick comment. I think the issue is complex, and I think we'd have to look at the history of each of these clubs. Why did they form? Did they feel excluded from joining another club in their town or city? Is there a language barrier? I've worked with immigrants in education, and they often want to join, but they feel embarrassed because of perhaps a language deficiency in English. But they want to be part of, say, the pack. In this case, they want to be part of Rotary, but maybe they just feel there's a language barrier. So I think it's more complex, and we'd have to look at it on a case by case. And I agree with Ron, if there is an exclusion to other groups, that would be a problem. But I would say let's look at the origins of how these clubs started and why before we criticize them.
Okay, Hans?
I don't mean to criticize at all. I'm just thinking of our district as a whole. If you have people that only speak one language and their club is used to doing it that way. How do we ever attract them to take on a district role? Our district is not going to really reflect the diversity of our clubs by way of memberships and leadership. And that concerns me. I'd love to see a Korean district governor. I'd love to see a Taiwanese district governor. But I'd like to be able to draw from these clubs to participate in our district. And so far, I can't say that I've seen it. Okay, that's okay. That's the end of my story. Thanks.
Okay, well, thank you, Jan. And we have seen it in some district roles, Hans, not at the district governor, in the district governor role, but we have seen it in others, including in committee chairs and AGs.
We had a fabulous and very diverse foundation dinner. That I think Hans was at. So
yeah.
On the positive side of that discussion.
Yes, thanks, Artis. Okay, Jan, wrap up time.
Yeah, my comment is, I agree with what you said, John, in that each club is unique and different, and they're in a different situation. And I know quite a few Rotarians who are members of expat clubs because they live in various countries and they do maybe speak some of the language, but not enough to feel comfortable going to the meeting in, I'm not going to name the countries they're in. And so there's Americans, Canadians, and Brits that form, and they're called expat club of whatever city. And they sometimes partner with the other clubs. They're still doing great work. They want to be involved in Rotary. So I think the true meaning of diversity is that we can have clubs where we welcome anybody in, and we can also work with clubs that it's more comfortable for them, for whatever reason, that they share a similar background. And we have to work hard at encouraging them to then feel comfortable at doing something at district level. And that's just my 2 cents worth.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. That was a nice discussion. Nice to get into the need of one of the DEI parameters. That's great. And it shows us all how open-ended these dialogues can be. Okay, I want to cover. Thanks, Artis. And I'd like to cover several items. Since I'm mindful of time, and I did promise that we would be able to close this out in an hour. People are welcome to stay longer, obviously, but to do that, I'm going to go through several items, and I'll just go through them, and then we'll open it up for discussion on all of them. This is really all related to, we're coming to the end of our year, and there are a number of us here that are changing roles one way and another. Most of us, if we aren't an assistant governor for a 3-year term or something, we're probably changing roles. We're a president that is coming to the end of our term. We're a president-elect who is about to become club president. And this is a time when we want to finish strong in our current role, because we want to, some things get crystallized as we come. It's a useful benchmark as we come to the end of the year. We crystallize our progress. We reach our objectives, hopefully mainly, and we have stretch goals, and maybe we don't meet all of them, but we give it our best shot. And so it's that great time where we get to bring some of these threads together. But we I think it's great where we're explicit about some of that. And if we are mindful of our goals, we're apt to achieve them. So the first thing I want to flag, and I flagged this at the last forum, is as we near the end of the year, we come to June 30th when we have people making decisions about whether they're carrying on as a Rotary member or not. And part of what we're finding, and this is since probably time immemorial, is that the people that are engaged are the people we retain. And we really want to retain members, but we want to retain engaged members. And we want to listen to our members in terms of, okay, why are some of them maybe not as engaged? So that requires active listening, which means we have to talk to them, we have to take the initiative, we have to ask. and we have to listen, and we have to remember that there are so many things within clubs and within Rotary generally that we can do to be engaged. There was people joined Rotary for a reason. They had the thought that they were able to serve, and we need as leaders to try to provide them with those opportunities to serve, and that's how we're stronger as clubs and how we retain members. So I really encourage everybody to review their membership and take a look at who you may need to be making contact with. Right now is absolutely the time to do that. Foundation, we're doing splendidly. Lauren may add, because Lauren has a wealth of information on Foundation. You know, we aren't at the $1 million that we hit last year, which was way a record, but we're doing really well. And the thing is that, again, as we near the end of the year, some people look at where they're at towards the end of the year. We have different benchmarks that we have in terms of recognition, that kind of thing, that sometimes we can get those. And anything we can do to just remind members that we're nearing the end of the year for Foundation, if you haven't been on that. And there's, I appreciate that some people have been right on that, and so you don't want to inundate them with requests, but keep that in mind. I want to talk about our goals and our progress particularly as they're recorded in Rotary Club Central. And that's where the clubs are everybody has put their goals in to Rotary Club Central. We've got virtually all the clubs in with goals, and that's fantastic. Our district's got a really good record there, and Lauren has been really, really helpful in getting us there and keeping us on that course. At this time of year, we want to make sure that we're updating our goals and qualifying, if we can, for the presidential citation, because we get that's a very nice piece of recognition, a nice honor if our club can get a Rotary citation. And so we have to hit 13 of the goals that we have put in to get that. And most clubs are there. One of the real challenges is making sure that we record it so it brings to fruition in the sense of the credit we get for all the work that we've been doing. So great encouragement to and there may be a couple of things you have to do to get to a goal or two, but let's go get them. And we put out a report on Rotary Club Central and key performance indicators for the third quarter that has gone to all the club presidents, and the assistant governors have been asked to have a conversation with you about that third quarter progress report by the 15th of May. And we're reviewing our process there, as I've promised you on the DG visits. We've tried to streamline the process. We've tried to make it more user-friendly, more useful, require less time on the getting ready as far as the club presidents are concerned. And we're going to be reviewing how these changes, how this process has worked. So please feed back to your assistant governors if you're happy or if you think we need to improve our system. We are all ears. Last item I've got on my list is we had the annual general meeting of the District 5040 Inc. Last week. And I'm very pleased to report that everything went well with the meeting. We did it online. We got really good participation. We had most of our clubs represented. We had 80 odd people on the call. So that was super. And we had a major agenda item where we were proposing to increase the dues, as many of you know, from $50 a member to $85. And that sounds like a huge increase, but it, of course, isn't really that, because we've taken on from district paying for the registration fee for PETS, the President-elect Training Seminar. So it's really paying for things in a different way. But the motion on dues passed overwhelmingly. There were a couple of abstentions, nobody opposed. So that was fantastic. That we're unified on going down this road. For your planning for this coming year, Lauren provided a very good paper, if you didn't read it, on club dues philosophy. What's happening with next year is that the dues will be 85 per district, and there's another 25 roughly for insurance. We don't know the exact number yet. So roughly it'll be a total of 110. But remember that you do not have to budget anymore for your president-elect to go to pets. And so that's been $850 this past year that district picked up. We had accumulated surplus, so it didn't have to be paid for by either dues or clubs, but obviously that doesn't continue very long at that rate. So that's where we're at with dues. I see somebody from Rotary is on. The insurance advice we get from Rotary now is that from Rotary, the insurance advice we get now is that contrary to earlier advice, it looks like Rotary likely will not have to pay for insurance. And the earlier advice was Rotary was going to have to pay 25, the same as Rotary. The more recent advice, but I stress it is not confirmed until we get it in writing and it's confirmed from the insurer, not just the agent's opinion. It's not certain, but we're very optimistic that Rotary won't face a charge for insurance. It's basically it's paid for, of course, by what the clubs are paying through district. That's all I've got. I'm wide open now for any questions on anything I've said or any questions otherwise. And of course, we've got lots of folks from district here other than me that can help and probably do a better job of answering. Gabe.
John, what does the insurance cover?
The insurance covers the short answer is that you need to go online to get it, because I'm not expert enough at it. Nancy is more familiar with it, I think, than I am. But my sort of crude way of putting it is that it covers liability insurance.
Thank you.
And some projects, insurance as well. If you have some special projects where you're having alcohol or something, you have to apply for an additional license. But for most of your projects, you are covered also because you declare those projects in the insurance program. Having said that, you should always check with the insurance company to make sure you have enough insurance for any type of special.
Thank
Yes,
you.
and I did post the entire insurance policy online, but that's last year's. This year's hasn't been approved yet, but it's on there if you wish to read it. And if you have a problem finding it, give me a shout and I'll show you where it is.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
and now we're going to get the professional view. Hans has got his hand up, and full disclosure, Hans was in the insurance business.
I was also the district link for quite a number of years with the previous broker, as Lauren well knows, in Prince George. People always ask when they come into Rotary, why is there insurance? And it's not because we're going to do something wrong. It's to protect us when somebody thinks they've been wronged, liability or otherwise, and then they sue a Rotary club. Well, I mean, how can you sue anybody in a Rotary club? Well, they do. And if you want an insurance company if you want someone to get a lawyer and to defend you, what better way than having an insurance company pay for that instead of, you're the president last year when this happened, you're going to have to take care of getting a lawyer. What? I'm not president anymore. Yeah, but it happened under your term. So no, it's not so much paying out stuff. We very rarely pay out stuff, but it's to defend us. These are the things you never hear about. And also, if your club has absolutely anything to do with children, whether you go into schools and do interviews, deliver books the way we do, or anything to do with minors, you have to have it. There's no other way to live in this world without that. And again, you want to protect yourself, your members, and everybody else that deals with Rotary. So thank you. That's all I wanted to say. Thanks, John.
Thank you very much. And I see that Shirley Pat put a couple of things in chat. So I'm going to flag those in case people aren't seeing it in chat. The goals for next year, you can put them in now, and you're strongly encouraged to put your goals into Rotary Club Central for as soon as you can if you're a president-elect, and remembering that it's on behalf of your club, and hopefully you're talking to your board and your club about what those goals are. And if you have problems, you can talk to your AG, to Shirley Pat, to Nancy or Peter Clark. There's all sorts of help if you need help with that. For registration for pets, while I did note that district now pays for registration for pets, so you don't have to budget for registration, district does not pay for travel. So the travel for pets is a club responsibility. This year as a pilot project, we provided some assistance for clubs that needed it and applied, but that was only up to half the cost, and it's something that will need to be reviewed. But really, the clubs that have a higher travel cost particularly need to make sure they're budgeting for travel for pets. Nancy.
I just wanted to remind the clubs that if you are going to put your goals in, make sure that you're listed on the website as being an officer of the club. So you make sure you're listed either as a president or president-elect. When I get people frustrated because they can't get on and record their goals, it's because they're not listed as an officer of the club.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, well, thank you, everybody. Oh, Shirley Pat.
Just me. I'm not getting the message right now that my internet's unstable. So I'm gonna take the moment just to invite everybody, because I know John would feel that I was remiss if I didn't. You are all welcome, and I'm gonna put the link here because Club Runner and I are not having very much fun today. It doesn't want to work for me. So I'm gonna put a link in for you. This is the lovely link if anybody is interested in coming to the district installation, which will be at the historic cannery in Steveston. And if you weren't at the district conference and didn't hear me mention, there will be grazing stations and a chocolate fountain. And your ears will also be tickled by the lovely sounds of Gary Poole, our treasurer extraordinaire and most beloved teacher for over a decade at UBC. So, John, did I miss anything?
No, I think you've covered it all. And there may even be an after party. Don't forget that.
The pub. That's right. we can cross the street to the pub if you're feeling so inclined. The information is there. It is the Saturday, last Saturday in June, or sorry, Saturday before June 24th, and everything's there, $60, and any proceeds beyond what if we don't have to spend it and lots of people come, we'll make sure we've got lots of food and chocolate. But if there's any extra, it will go towards the next Right to Read library. We've got 6 on the go, so it will go to good work. It won't go anywhere but we're going to do our best to spend it with the caterers. However, because of COVID, these lovely caterers have a slight credit from our club because of a previous event that we couldn't do. So there it is. All the information is on the link there. If you'd like to come, we'd love to have you. And it's a chance to see the historic cannery in Steveston and have a delightful, fun evening of celebrating all the Rotarians that support our clubs.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So is there anything else for the good of Rotary before we wrap it up? Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody, for coming. Thank you, Peter, for arranging, and thank you so much for Artis for coming and sharing with us all the good news about DEI.
And thank you for everybody and their poignant comments and great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone.
I'll be posting the recording and the chat and everything soon.
Okay.
Super.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Night.